was excited when the mission Polaris Dawn finally launched after several delays. The launch window opened at 3:38 a.m. Eastern Time. It was too early for a brain already exhausted after many long nights working. I just had to wish them Godspeed before going to bed. But as soon as I woke up, I checked the news and I was delighted to hear that the launch took place and they were in orbit. One of the fantastic things about this flight is that the crew members, Sarah Gillis, Anna Menon, Kit Petit, and Jared Isaacman are civilians, and that the flight is also funded privately. It was the first human space flight for all of them, except for Jared, who had flew previously as the commander of Inspiration 4. Two of the crew members, Sarah and Anna, are also lead space operation engineers at SpaceX. What a fantastic job to have! Sarah is responsible for oversight of the company's astronaut training program, and Anna managed the development of the crew operations and also serves in mission control. Kit is a retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, and Jared is the CEO of Ship 4, a very successful company. Although the highlight of the flight was the test of the SpaceX extravehicular activity spacesuits, there was also 36 experiments from 31 partner institutions that the crew brought on board and did through the whole flight. To understand how is a work day in space, let's look what happened the first day. With no time to spare, they had the first science and research block that day. It lasted 3.5 hours and included the laser-based communications with the Starlink. But midday, the crew settled to the first 8 hours of sleep in space. Please don't ask me how they can sleep. I would be super excited and unable to close my eyes. But they probably were exhausted after a long night waiting for the launch. And also, traveling to space is not that easy. While they were sleeping, the Dragon performed its first apogee racing burn to 715 miles, and during the second day, actually the vehicle rose higher to 118 by 817 miles elliptical orbit to later descend to 450 miles in preparation for the spacewalk. As an interesting fact, the Polaris Dawn mission became the highest Dragon mission flown to date and higher than any human in over 50 years. Although the spacewalk was scheduled for the third day in orbit, the astronauts started preparing from the start of the mission. They went through a 2-day pre-breathe process designed to prevent decompression sickness. This process slowly decreases oxygen levels within the spacecraft cabin to acclimate the crew to lower pressures. They also tested their spacesuits inside the spacecraft, pressurizing them to make sure that they could proceed with the spacewalk. The spacewalk was first scheduled to begin at 2:23 a.m. Eastern Time of September 12th. Although it was pretty early, I set my alarm to watch it live, but luckily it was delayed slightly, giving me some time to catch up with my sleep. The first step began at 3:12, but the spacewalk started at 4:58 a.m. Eastern Time and lasted for about 20 minutes. We missed the feed video when Jared opened the hatch. We just saw the moments when he had to push hard to loosen the hatch, 1 minute or two before the actual opening. Fortunately, we recovered the video when he started to perform the spacewalk. Only Jared and Sarah graced the vehicle, while Kit and Anna supported the spacewalkers by monitoring the vital support systems. Because there is no airlock in the Dragon capsule, when Jared opened the hatch, all the air was released to space, so all the astronauts had to wear the EVA suits. Actually, the Polaris Dawn crew became the first crew executing an EVA where 4 astronauts were simultaneously exposed to the vacuum of space. They went outside the vehicle one at a time. Each repeated the same evaluation of the spacesuit mobility, the thermal systems, and Dragon mobility. Both used the Skywalker to aid the spacewalk. This Skywalker is a structure that was installed in the con section of Dragon, especially for this mission, and this was covered with a thermal barrier similar to the one used in the Super Draco chamber. They closed the hatch once Sarah completed the EVA, followed by the repressurization of Dragon. Once the pressure was safe, the crew was able to remove the EVA suits. Overall, the operation lasted about 2 hours and officially completed several firsts. The first time the spacesuit was exposed to space, the first commercial spacewalk, and the first EVA from a Dragon capsule. Before and after this event, they work on other experiments like measuring the pupils to study how the headward fluids caused by microgravity might lead to spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome. They also tested a novel 3D device to build 3 images of the structure of the eye in microgravity and a miniaturized intelligent ultrasound that astronauts can use to scan themselves and collect medical-grade image. A very elementary test also involved the study of motion sickness in spaceflight. Another highlight of this flight was the first ever space-to-Earth music concert called Harmony of Resilience. On Friday, September 13th, Sarah Gillis played the solo violin part of Rey's theme from the Star Wars movie The Force Awakens, while videos from orchestra of talented students worldwide joined it simultaneously. You can see the video on the Polaris Dawn website. The link is in the comment section of this video. On September 15, after 5 days in space, the mission Polaris Dawn crew returned to Earth, splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico near Dry Tortugas, Florida, where the recovery vessel MV Shannon picked up the crew and sent them back home. This was another successful story for SpaceX and the first for the Polaris program. If you like the information in this channel, don't forget to subscribe.